It's Chris from Laser Lemming and UpandLoaded.com. Today, we are talking about Sony's E3 2017 press conference. Just happened. And we're not going to take as long as we did with the Microsoft breakdown because Microsoft took a lot longer than Sony. Sony was almost half as long as Microsoft was this year. And it showed. The reason was because Sony was just so succinct. They did not waste any time. No fluff this year. All they did was show trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer. There was barely any talking. Microsoft, I felt, was pretty succinct for Microsoft. But Sony was like a mute compared to Microsoft. They didn't want to talk. They just wanted to show trailers. And, you know, that's cool. A little bit boring. I feel like there's a happy medium somewhere. Nintendo is often very succinct as well. And their press conference is only going to be 30 minutes. So we will see. It's not even a press conference for Nintendo. It's just a spotlight. It's a video. No live audience. But back to Sony. So Sony opened the show. Well, there was a pre-show where they kind of got some budget games out of the way. There was Knack 2, a Gran Turismo sport game, a golf game. These were games that were not going to be $60 games for the most part. And I thought that was kind of smart. Kind of whet people's appetites, get them in the mood for some games, but these aren't going to be the big games that you're looking out for. So how do they start the official show? With DLC, add-on content. I thought that was weird. Microsoft started it weird as well with Forza 7. Not the most universal game to show, but Sony starts it off with Uncharted DLC. And I believe it's also standalone, or maybe it's only standalone, but remember Uncharted 4? There is a DLC coming out that stars Chloe and that other chick who was a bad guy in Uncharted 4. Anyway, they're partnered together. It looks cool. Looks cool. And then they showed a DLC for Horizon. And, you know, that's fine. That's fine, but I felt like maybe those two things should have been in the pre-show. I don't think you start your big show that only happens once a year with DLC. Kind of odd to me, but that's what they decided to do. Then they went on to a AAA game, Days Gone. They showed it before. It looks like a game that could easily be a Last of Us spinoff. It's a modernish kind of setting with a guy fighting in a world full of zombies, but humans are the real enemies. It's The Last of Us, published by Sony, again, except it's called Days Gone. Looks fine, looks cool. I really enjoyed The Last of Us, so I'm sure I'll enjoy that as well. There was also Shadow of the Colossus, kind of a surprise. I don't remember hearing anything about that. It's just called Shadow of the Colossus, coming 2018. And it looks like a sequel slash reboot. I don't know, but that was out of nowhere. And it didn't get a lot of fanfare. I think Sony expected a lot of fanfare because of The Last Guardian, also created by the people that made Shadow of the Colossus, the original. And that was huge, also because The Last Guardian was heavily delayed. I'm sure that the hype behind The Last Guardian was one of the big reasons this Shadow of the Colossus game got greenlit in the first place. Losing my words. Anyway, moving on, there was also a game called Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. You might have noticed that all of these games, except for, I think, Shadow of the Colossus, have been announced already. You've seen them before. And that is a definite trend with Sony's press conference this year. It was a lot of games you've seen before, except now you're seeing them in more depth and more trailers and more gameplay videos. It's good, it's bad, it's in between. They also showed, well, before I move on, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It was a story trailer. It reminded me a lot of the Subspace Emissary story in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where it's just characters from different universes interacting. You got Mega Man talking to the raccoon, Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy, and other characters just mingling together. It's fine, but the cool thing was that they said, story demo out now on PlayStation 4. Capcom also showed another game called Monster Hunter World. And this was kind of leaked a few days earlier because of a trademark Capcom filed for a game called Monster Hunter World. And coming to the PlayStation 4, probably the Xbox One as well. Switch is getting Monster Hunter Double Cross, so Monster Hunter for everyone. Now, moving on, they also showed off a game called Call of Duty World War II. Brand new game you've never seen before, except for when they announced it a few weeks ago. This is another game that was already announced. And the interesting thing about what they showed with Call of Duty World War II was that it was a multiplayer trailer. And I thought I was watching a campaign trailer. It turns out that was a multiplayer trailer. The reason most people, myself included, didn't know we were watching a multiplayer trailer was because there was no HUD on the screen, no radar, no dots flying around, no names above the heads, no score count. It was just a raw trailer with... It's meant to look cinematic, and they succeeded at that. But believe me when I say that all of those things will be in the final game, because Call of Duty is very competitive. Activision's all about raking in that money. And there's going to be loot crates, believe it. So Activision's going to be milking you for years to come with this game. PlayStation VR was the next focus. Sony, bless their souls, talked about the VR. Well, they didn't talk about it so much as just showed it. And this was just another handful of trailers. They had Skyrim. Skyrim had a Switch trailer yesterday. Kind of an awkward Switch trailer. People were very confused about that one because it looks great. It's Skyrim also on the go. But they played a poppy song, Take a Walk, Take a Walk. They played that over it. This Skyrim trailer did not have that song. And it's just kind of cool for people who really like Skyrim and want to play it in VR. So that's great. It's also a game, though, that people are very well familiar with at this point. There was another 2.5D looking game called Star Child. Interested to see how the VR plays with that. Another game, Final Fantasy Fishing Simulator. It's called Monster something something Final Fantasy 15, but it's really Final Fantasy Fishing Simulator. Enjoy. Another game called Moss is about a little mouse kind of guy with a sword and his little spirit friend and a dragon or something. I don't know, it looks fine. But the main point I want to make about the PSVR right now is if I owned one, if I spent $300 to $400 on a PlayStation VR, and I saw this press conference, I might not be too happy right now. Because that's a very expensive device, and I'm not seeing a lot of promise there. That's not a lot to go with. And, you know, there was a good one. There was a game that I was interested in was called The Inpatient. It's a horror game set in a mental ward, which is just, it's perfect. But outside of that, and the Moss game looked kind of cool as well, but outside of that, I don't feel like very confident in my PlayStation VR purchase if that's what Sony had to show me. It reminded me of when they had practically nothing to show a year after releasing the Vita. So the other issue I think is that a lot of the games, not all of them, but a lot of them looked pretty low budget compared to the other games they were showing. And VR is very hard to demonstrate, very hard to sell without actually putting it on and trying yourself. So when you just see a trailer full of floating hands, awkwardly moving weapons, and throwing things, it's not going to sell you. You have to actually do it yourself to be like, oh, this is cool. If you don't do it yourself, it's not going to sell anybody on the game. So Sony's got their work cut out for them, and it's weird because Sony is kicking ass in the VR department. I think they're outselling everybody big time, and yet they don't have a lot to show. That's the problem with VR right now. It's also a problem with accessories. This is like kind of the equivalent of, say, the 32X on the Sega Genesis, and some people are going to be pissed off that I said that, but just for a rough example. The 32X, if you bought it, you could play 32X games on your Sega Genesis, but not everybody had that. Not everybody has a PlayStation VR, so there's a limited audience for your 32X games. There's a limited audience for your PlayStation VR games, so most developers focus on the bigger audience. But moving on, like Sony did, away from the PlayStation VR, they focused on the AAA again, and that was God of War, the reboot sequel. It's just called God of War. It's really like God of War 6 or 7, but who's counting? And you know the story. You saw it last year. Just like so many of these games, you saw it last year, but just like last year, it looked great. It looked great. It's not coming this year, which means last year is going to be looked on a little more harshly. It's like, oh, you guys showed us a game that wasn't coming out for 2 years. Assuming it does come out in 2018, it probably will. They said early 2018. Like several of these games are coming out in 2018. Another one was Shadow of the Colossus. I think I mentioned that. And the big one, which we'll get to. But God of War looked good. It looked good. It looked fun. I'm interested. They also showed Detroit Become Human. They showed that game last year as well. Still looked good, but it's not new. It's not new, but they showed it last year. It was a longer trailer, and it was from the same people, I believe, that did Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy. So it's fine, you know. Some of the dialogue in those games is very hit and miss, so I wasn't like super sold on it, but it could be fun. You know, I like story-based games. I play the Telltale games, the Walking Dead ones in particular. I beat the Batman one. Easiest platinum trophy you'll ever get, by the way. I don't really ever go for platinums, but I just magically get them when I play a Telltale game. So look out for that platinum on Detroit Become Human. Next, we have Destiny 2. Sony and Activision are just the best of friends this generation. It was Microsoft and Activision last gen, where you had that freaking Tool, whatever his name was. He used to be Microsoft's main boy, then he moved on to Zynga, but he would be the one like telling people to clap for Microsoft's money hatting of DLC. You could only get this DLC, you could play this DLC first on Xbox 360 for 30 days. Clap, everyone! Clap that other people don't get to enjoy this at the same time. Going on a little rant. But my point is, Sony kind of did the same thing without the asshole in the back telling you to clap for other people's problems. So Sony had a Destiny 2 trailer, and then at the end of the trailer, it became a freaking commercial where they said, this piece of DLC, this piece of DLC, this piece of DLC, exclusive to the PlayStation 4. Isn't that great? So no, I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm not a big fan of any of that crap. I don't like when a game ends its trailer with pre-order now. I mean, I get it, you gotta sell, but this was kind of a little egregious, I felt, for an E3 show. They finally closed it out, and it feels weird that I'm saying finally already, but they closed the show out with SpiderMan. And if you were watching my last video, or my predictions video, I said that SpiderMan is probably going to be Sony's big game this year. Not so much. They closed out the show with a big game that's not coming out until 2018. But they said early 2018, I think. But yes, it's 2018. And it looked great. It looked great. Everything looked great except for Spider-Man's costume. I'm still not a fan of the whole giant white spider on him. It doesn't look good on the red. It doesn't look good. So I could spend a whole hour talking about that white spider, but nah, we'll focus on the gameplay, which is what Sony did. It was just a raw gameplay trailer where it's just showing this big part of the game, and it showed that it had Kingpin in it, you know, from the Spider-Man and Daredevil universe. That was kind of cool, and the movement and the web slinging and the combat, it looked great for a Spider-Man game. I still think the combat in the Batman Arkham games is on point, but actually they really nailed it with this Spider-Man game. It's just fluid, and it just looks like a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that in 2018. But that was it, guys. Sony was very succinct, very to the point. They had a lot to show, but a lot of what they showed was shown before, a year ago. So it's good. It's not bad. I was about to say it's good and bad, but it's not. It's good, but it could have been better, I guess, if you want to be picky. I just feel like, you know, Sony should probably slow the roll a little bit, and Nintendo should stop being so slow. Nintendo already said from the jump that this year they're focusing on 2017 games, but I hope they give us a little sneak peek of something 2018 related. Sony, no. They were trailer. It was like going to the movies and just watching trailers. So it was good. It was good for the most part, but that was just, you know, my completely unbiased thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section below. What did you think of the Sony E3 press conference? Have you watched the trailers? There was a Ubisoft press conference that happened as well, where a little game called Beyond Good and Evil 2, which should be called Beyond Good and Evil Origins or something, that was shown. Again, CG trailer with a lot of F-bombs. But that was kind of cool. Kind of a surprise. So let me know your thoughts about the Sony show, and you could throw in some Ubisoft thoughts as well. No Ubisoft video right now, but let me know your thoughts. I don't know if I said that. You should let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did you like this video? I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Did you dislike this video? I mean, you could do the thumbs down, but maybe you could mistake it for a thumbs up. I don't know. Subscribe for more if you have not already. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.